On a stormy afternoon, as the rain cascaded down like an endless curtain, a man named Lucas stepped out of his sleek SUV, clutching a box filled with supplies. From the outside, Lucas appeared to have wealth, success, and a life most could only dream of. But beneath the polished surface was a heart weighed down by a painful past and a longing for something even his fortune couldn't buy: connection. That day, Lucas wasn't visiting the luxurious halls of a corporate boardroom or a glamorous event. Instead, his destination was a small, aging orphanage in the city's quiet outskirts. For Lucas, this wasn't just charity, a way to honor his childhood struggles, a time when life had been far from kind. Lucas didn't know that this seemingly ordinary visit would become the turning point of his life. Inside the orphanage, he would meet someone, a little girl named Amelia, who would unravel secrets he thought were buried forever. Who is this mysterious child, and why does she seem so familiar? Could this encounter be more than just a coincidence? This heartwarming yet suspenseful story will take you on a journey of love, loss, and the extraordinary ways life connects us when we least expect it. If stories of resilience, redemption, and unexpected miracles resonate, subscribe to our channel. Stay tuned to uncover the profound truths hidden in Lucas and Amelia's tale. It's one you won't want to miss. It was a dreary afternoon as Lucas parked his modest yet elegant SUV outside the small, weathered gates of the evergreen orphanage. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, leaving puddles scattered across the uneven pavement. Lucas stepped out, holding a large box filled with neatly packed canned goods, fresh fruits, and new blankets. His tailored gray coat flared slightly in the wind as he carried the heavy box to the orphanage entrance, where the scent of damp earth mingled with the faint aroma of freshly baked bread from the orphanage's modest kitchen. The orphanage was a modest two-story brick building, its walls aged and worn from years of enduring harsh weather. Though cleaned and carefully maintained, the windows bore the subtle haze of time. For Lucas, however, this place held a quiet charm. It reminded him of the homes he'd once dreamed of as a boy. Their kindness and warmth could outshine material luxury. As he approached, the door creaked open to reveal Clara, the orphanage director, a woman in her late 50s with gentle eyes framed by silver hair strands. Her worn yet elegant cardigan suggested practicality over style, though the warmth in her expression was undeniable. She smiled widely upon seeing Lucas stepping forward with open arms. "Lucas," she greeted, her voice a melody of kindness and exhaustion. "It's always such a pleasure to see you. The children will be overjoyed to know you're here." "Good afternoon, Clara," Lucas replied, offering her a warm smile as he handed over the box. "I brought some supplies. I hope they'll be helpful." Clara peeked inside the box, her smile widening. "You never disappoint. Come, let's bring this to the kitchen. It's almost lunchtime, and your timing is perfect." Lucas followed her inside, the warmth of the orphanage instantly wrapping around him. The smell of roasted vegetables and bread greeted him as they entered the main hallway. The distant sound of laughter and spontaneous steps echoed faintly, reminding him why he returned here so often. This wasn't just a charitable act, it was a connection to the life he had left behind, the struggles he had overcome, and the compassion he had vowed never to forget. As they walked to the kitchen, Clara glanced over at Lucas. "You know, the kids adore you. Every time you visit, they light up in ways I rarely see. For many of them, you're a symbol of hope." Lucas chuckled softly, shaking his head. "I'm just someone who understands what it's like to feel lost, Clara. If I can make their day even a little brighter, it's worth it." Together, they unloaded the supplies into the orphanage's modest kitchen, where a handful of volunteers busily prepared meals. Clara gestured for Lucas to sit, but he declined, glancing toward the hallway. "Mind if I take a look around?" he asked. Clara smiled knowingly. "Of course. You always do." As Lucas strolled through the orphanage, his polished shoes clicked softly against the wooden floors. He greeted the children he passed, offering each a kind smile or a playful ruffle of their hair. Some recognized him immediately, rushing to show him drawings or share stories about their day. Others watched shyly from a distance, their guarded expressions a reminder of the emotional scars they carried. He eventually reached a brightly lit playroom where several children were gathered. The room was alive with color. Hand-painted walls featuring clouds and trees, shelves stacked with books and toys, and tables scattered with crayons and unfinished drawings. The laughter and chatter were infectious, but as Lucas scanned the room, his gaze caught on a solitary figure in the corner. A little girl sat quietly on a worn cushion, her knees drawn to her chest. Her light brown hair fell over her face, partially obscuring a pair of deep, expressive eyes. While the other children laughed and played, she seemed lost in her world, her tiny fingers tracing patterns on the fabric of her dress. Lucas felt a strange pull toward her, an almost magnetic force he couldn't explain. He approached slowly, kneeling a short distance away so as not to startle her. "Hi there," he said gently, his voice soft and warm. The girl lifted her head slightly, her eyes meeting his with curiosity and caution. "Hello," she murmured, barely audible. "What's your name?" he asked, offering a friendly smile. "Amelia," she replied, her voice still quiet but clearer now. "That's a beautiful name," Lucas said sincerely. "I'm Lucas. Do you mind if I sit here with you?" Amelia hesitated but nodded, shifting slightly to make room on the cushion. Lucas settled beside her, careful to keep a respectful distance. "You don't feel like playing with the others?" he asked, noticing how she avoided looking at the other children. Amelia shook her head. "I don't like playing with them. They make fun of me." Lucas's heart ached at her words. "Why would they do that?" "They say I'm weird because I don't talk much," Amelia admitted, trembling. "And because I don't have parents like some do." Lucas was silent for a moment, his mind racing with childhood memories. He remembered the isolation, the pain of being different, and the longing for a connection he couldn't understand. "Well," he began gently, "you're not weird, Amelia. You're special. And sometimes, being special means others don't understand you right away." Amelia turned to him, her eyes softening. "Do you think so?" Lucas smiled warmly. "I know so. And for what it's worth, I think you're pretty amazing." A small smile tugged at the corners of Amelia's lips for the first time. It was faint, but it was there, and it filled Lucas's chest with a warmth he hadn't felt in years. "I come here often," Lucas continued. "Maybe next time, we can play a game together. Would you like that?" Amelia nodded, her small hands relaxing slightly. "I think I'd like that." Lucas realized this little girl had stirred something profound within him. It wasn't just her quiet strength or haunting eyes, the unshakable feeling that she belonged in his life in a way he couldn't yet explain. As they sat together, Lucas made a silent promise to himself. He would return not just for the orphanage but for Amelia. Something about her, her vulnerability, her resilience, demanded more than a passing visit. She deserved more, and he was determined to find a way to give it to her. As Lucas drove home that evening, the rain continued its gentle patter against his windshield, yet his thoughts were far from the weather. Amelia's image lingered vividly in his mind, the timid smile, the deep sadness in her eyes, and the uncanny resemblance to someone he had loved more than life itself. His late wife, Sophia. It wasn't just her appearance that haunted him. There was something unexplainable in how her presence stirred emotions he hadn't felt in years. He replayed their brief conversation in his mind, the vulnerability in her voice and the cautious hope she'd shown when he had promised to play with her next time. A gnawing sense of familiarity tugged at his heart, one he couldn't shake no matter how much he tried to reason it away. Arriving at his sprawling mansion, Lucas stepped into the quiet warmth of his home. The polished marble floors and towering ceilings seemed colder than usual despite the roaring fire crackling in the grand fireplace. He moved through the familiar halls until he reached his study, where a photograph of Sophia rested on his desk. Sophia's face, radiant and full of life, stared back at him from the frame. Her deep brown eyes and warm smile were Amelia's mirror image. Lucas sank into his leather chair, gripping the photo as memories of that fateful day flooded his mind. It had been a rainy night, much like this one. The car accident had been brutal, tearing Sophia and, as he believed, their 2-year-old daughter, Emma, away from him. For years, he had blamed himself, drowning in guilt and grief. Though he had searched endlessly for answers, the authorities had insisted that his daughter's body was never recovered because of the crash's violent nature. Eventually, Lucas had been forced to accept the unimaginable, that his little girl was gone. But now, for the first time in nearly 7 years, he felt a flicker of doubt. Could it be possible? Could Amelia indeed be his Emma? The thought seemed too outrageous to entertain, yet the resemblance was undeniable. Her age matched. Her features matched. Even the way she spoke carried echoes of Sophia's gentle cadence. Lucas couldn't ignore the possibility, no matter how slim it seemed. Placing the photograph back on his desk, Lucas leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his dark hair. "Amelia," he whispered, the name feeling both foreign and familiar on his lips. "Could it be you?" That night, Lucas made a decision. He had to find out more about her past, how she had come to the orphanage, and whether the impossible could somehow be true. Sleep eluded him as he planned his next steps, his mind a whirlpool of hope and fear. The following morning, Lucas could have spent more time. With his connections and resources, he began a discreet inquiry into Amelia's history. He contacted private investigators, legal experts, and even old acquaintances from working with child welfare organizations. His instructions were clear. Uncover everything about her origins, but handle the matter delicately to avoid unnecessarily disrupting the child's life. By mid-afternoon, Lucas had received the first batch of information. Clara, the orphanage director, had provided an essential background. Amelia had been brought to the orphanage 6 years ago by a hospital worker who claimed she was abandoned. There was no record of her biological parents or family members, and attempts to trace her lineage had led to dead ends. Lucas frowned as he read the report. The timing aligned too perfectly with the accident that had shattered his life. He scanned the details repeatedly, each word deepening the pit in his stomach. Could it be a coincidence? The breakthrough came late that evening when one of the private investigators called him directly. "Mr. West," the man began, his tone cautious but intrigued, "I've managed to locate some old police reports related to a car accident from the year your wife passed away. There's something you should see." Lucas's pulse quickened. "What is it?" he asked, gripping the phone tightly. "The reports indicate that a toddler was found alive at the scene of the crash. She was taken to a nearby hospital but was later transferred to Child Protective Services due to a mix-up with the identification process. The paperwork suggests the hospital staff believe the child's parents were deceased, but there's no definitive confirmation. It's unusual, to say the least." Lucas's breath caught. A toddler? Are there details about her appearance? Anything to identify her? Only a brief description. A girl around 2 years old, with brown eyes and light brown hair. The description matches what we've seen of Amelia. However, the trail goes cold after the transfer to child services. It seems there was significant disorganization in the handling of her case. Lucas felt a mixture of joy and fury. How could such an error have happened? How could someone's life, his daughter's, have been misplaced in a tangle of bureaucracy? "I need you to dig deeper," he said firmly, his voice filled with determination. "Find out exactly what happened after that transfer. I don't care how many records you have to unearth. Just get me the truth." As the call ended, Lucas leaned back, his mind racing. If Amelia were Emma, she would have spent nearly her entire life alone, shuffled through the system without anyone to love or protect her. The thought filled him with both despair and an unshakable resolve. He had lost her once. He wouldn't lose her again. 2 days later, Lucas arrived at the orphanage with his heart pounding. The past 48 hours had been a whirlwind of revelations and emotions. The investigators' findings and Amelia's striking resemblance to his late wife convinced Lucas that he needed definitive answers. Clara greeted him at the door with her usual warm smile, but her sharp eyes caught the tension in his posture. "Lucas, is everything all right?" she asked, closing the door behind him. He hesitated, taking a deep breath before speaking. "Clara, there's something I need to talk to you about." "It's about Amelia." Clara tilted her head, curiosity and concern flickering in her gaze. "What about her?" Lucas gestured toward the hallway, silently asking for privacy. Clara led him to her small office, where they sat across from one another at an old wooden desk. Lucas leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly. "Clara," he began, his voice low and steady, I've recently uncovered information that makes me believe Amelia might be my daughter." Clara's eyes widened in shock. She leaned back slightly, studying Lucas to gauge his seriousness. "Lucas, that's a bold claim. Are you certain?" "I can't be certain yet," he admitted, his voice trembling with restrained emotion. "But everything lines up. Her age, appearance, and even the timing of when she was brought here. I lost my daughter in a car accident 7 years ago, or at least I thought I did. But now I believe she may have survived and somehow ended up here." Clara's expression softened, and she nodded slowly. "I understand why you feel this way. Amelia, she's always had an air of mystery about her past. But if your statement is true, this could change everything." Lucas leaned closer. "I need to talk to her, Clara. I need to ask her about what she remembers, even if it's just fragments. And if there's any way to confirm, through medical records or even a DNA test, I'll do whatever it takes." Clara considered his words carefully before standing. "Let me fetch her." "But Lucas," she added gently, "be patient with her. This could be overwhelming for a little girl who's already been through so much." Lucas nodded, his heart thundering in his chest. As Clara left the room, he tried to steady his breathing, rehearsing what he would say to Amelia. How could he explain this without scaring her? Would she even understand? A few moments later, the door opened, and Clara entered with Amelia in tow. The little girl's curious gaze flickered between Lucas and Clara. "Is something wrong?" she asked softly. Lucas knelt to her level, his eyes meeting hers. "Hi, Amelia," he said, his voice warm but tinged with nervousness. "There's something important I need to talk to you about." Amelia's small hands fidgeted with the hem of her dress. "Okay," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Lucas took a deep breath, his emotions threatening to spill over. "Do you remember anything about your parents? Or where did you come from before the orphanage?" Amelia frowned, her brows knitting together in thought. "Not really," she admitted. "I just know they died in an accident. That's what everyone tells me." Lucas's throat tightened. "Do you remember anything about the accident? Anything at all?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "No, I just remember being scared. And there was a nurse. She was nice to me but didn't stay long." Lucas's heart clenched. A nurse. That detail aligned with the investigator's findings. He reached out gently, taking her small hands in his. "Amelia," he began, his voice trembling. I think you might be my daughter. The daughter I thought I lost in an accident a long time ago." Amelia's eyes widened, and she stared at him, frozen. "What do you mean?" she whispered. Lucas's grip on her hands tightened slightly, his eyes filling with tears. "I lost my wife and daughter in a car accident 7 years ago. Or at least, I thought I did. But now I believe you might be her, Amelia. My Emma." The room fell silent, the weight of his words hanging heavily in the air. Amelia's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to something more profound, a spark of hope. "Do you think I'm your daughter?" she asked, her voice shaking. Lucas nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Yes, sweetheart, I believe you are. And I'm going to do everything I can to prove it." For a moment, Amelia said nothing. Then, as if breaking through an invisible wall, she flung her arms around Lucas, burying her face in his shoulder. "I don't know if it's true," she sobbed, "but I want it to be." Lucas held her tightly, his tears falling freely. "Me too, Amelia. Me too." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of emotions and discoveries. Lucas arranged for a DNA test, the results of which would take time to process. In the meantime, he made it his mission to spend as much time with Amelia as possible, creating moments of connection and trust. He began visiting the orphanage daily, bringing books, games, and small gifts that he thought might make her smile. Together, they painted pictures in the playroom, read stories under the soft glow of a lamp, and explored the small garden behind the orphanage. At first, Amelia was shy, and her walls were built high from years of neglect and loneliness. But Lucas's gentle persistence slowly began to chip away at her defenses. He noticed the little things. How her eyes lit up when he brought her a book about animals, or how she laughed when he pretended to lose a game of checkers. One afternoon, as they sat in the garden watching a butterfly flit from flower to flower, Amelia turned to Lucas. "Do you think my mom would have liked me?" she asked quietly. Lucas's chest tightened, and he reached for her hand. "Amelia, your mom would have loved you more than anything. She was the kindest, most loving person I've ever known. And I see so much of her in you." Amelia's lips trembled, and she leaned into Lucas, resting her head against his arm. "I think I like having a dad," she whispered. Lucas smiled, his heart swelling with emotion. "And I like the idea of having you as my daughter." The DNA test results were still pending, but Lucas knew Amelia was his Emma. The bond they built felt too natural and right to be anything else. And no matter the results, he was prepared to fight for her. The day the DNA test results arrived, Lucas found himself pacing the grand living room of his mansion, the envelope clutched tightly in his hand. He had waited weeks for this moment, yet now that it was here, he felt paralyzed. What if he was wrong? What if Amelia wasn't his daughter? The thought of losing her, of walking away from the bond they had started to form, was unbearable. Finally, summoning his courage, Lucas tore open the envelope. His eyes scanned the document, his breath catching when he concluded, "Parentage confirmed with 99.9% probability." He stood there momentarily, the words blurring as tears filled his eyes. Relief, joy, and a profound sense of gratitude washed over him. Amelia was his daughter. Emma had been alive all this time. He didn't waste a second. Grabbing his keys, Lucas drove to the orphanage, his heart pounding with anticipation. When he arrived, Clara greeted him with a knowing smile. "You have news," she said simply. "Yes," Lucas replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I need to tell her." Clara led him to the playroom, where Amelia sat by herself, drawing on a large sheet of paper. She looked up as Lucas entered, her face lighting up with a shy smile. "Hi," she said softly. Lucas knelt in front of her, gently taking her hands in his. "Amelia, I have something important to tell you," he began, his voice trembling. Her expression grew serious, her wide eyes searching his face. "What is it?" Lucas took a deep breath. "The DNA test results came back, and they confirmed what I've felt since the day I met you. You're my daughter, Amelia. You're my Emma." Amelia's mouth fell open, her eyes filling with tears. "You're my dad," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Lucas nodded, his tears spilling over. "Yes, sweetheart. You're my little girl. And I promise you, I'll never let you go again." Amelia stared at him momentarily, her emotions too overwhelming for words. Then, as if a dam had broken, she threw herself into his arms, sobbing against his chest. "I knew it," she cried. "I knew you were my dad." Lucas held her tightly, his heart swelling with love and gratitude. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you all these years," he whispered. "But I'm here now, and I'm never leaving." In the following days, Lucas began legally adopting Amelia, ensuring that she would never have to return to the orphanage. The paperwork was tedious and time-consuming, but Lucas approached it with determination. Every signature and meeting with a lawyer brought him closer to officially bringing Amelia home. But while the legalities unfolded, Lucas focused on something more important, helping Amelia heal. He wanted to give her a sense of stability and joy, to make up for the years she had spent feeling unloved and unwanted. He started by bringing her to his mansion, now her new home. Amelia had been shocked the first time she stepped through the grand doors. The vast, elegant space seemed almost unreal to her, but Lucas reminded her that it wasn't the house that mattered. It was what they would build together. "You don't have to be afraid here," he told her gently as he showed her to her room, which he had decorated with soft pastel colors and shelves filled with books and toys. "This is your home now, Amelia. Everything here is yours." She had stared at him wide-eyed before running to hug him tightly. "Thank you, Dad," she whispered, the word Dad still feeling new but wonderfully right. The days passed in a joyful blur. Lucas took Amelia to explore the sprawling gardens surrounding the mansion, showing her the koi pond that had once been Sophia's favorite spot. They spent hours baking cookies in the kitchen, laughing as flour and sugar covered the countertops. One evening, as they sat by the fireplace, Amelia turned to Lucas with a thoughtful expression. Dad, do you think Mom would be happy? Lucas's chest tightened, and he placed a hand on her shoulder. I know she would be, he said with conviction. Your mom loved you more than anything. And I think she'd be so proud of the amazing person you've become. Amelia smiled, leaning her head against his arm. I wish I could remember her, she said softly. Lucas kissed the top of her head. I'll tell you all about her, Emma, he said, using her birth name for the first time. Everything she loved, everything she dreamed of. She's always going to be a part of us. Though their days were filled with happiness, Lucas was mindful of the emotional scars Amelia carried. There were moments when she grew quiet, her gaze distant, as if reliving painful memories. Lucas patiently approached these moments, encouraging her to share her thoughts whenever she felt ready. One afternoon, as they walked through the gardens, Amelia paused by the koi pond, staring at the shimmering water. Dad, she began hesitantly, do you think it's okay to be happy, even after everything that happened? Lucas knelt beside her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. Amelia, you deserve all the happiness in the world. What happened to us was unfair and heartbreaking, but it doesn't mean we can't find joy again. It doesn't mean we can't heal. She turned to him, her eyes filled with uncertainty. But what if I forget them? What if being happy means forgetting Mom or the time I spent in the orphanage? Lucas's heart ached for her. You won't forget, sweetheart, he assured her. Your mom is always with you, in your heart and our memories. And the time you spent in the orphanage made you the brave, strong girl you are today. Those experiences are a part of you, but they don't have to define you. Amelia nodded slowly, her expression softening. I think I like being happy, she admitted quietly. Lucas smiled, pulling her into a hug. And I like seeing you happy. We're going to build a beautiful life together, Emma. I promise. Lucas felt a deep sense of peace as they stood by the pond, watching the koi swim lazily beneath the surface. For the first time in years, his life felt whole. In the following weeks, Lucas and Amelia began settling into life together. Once quiet and sterile, the mansion now buzzed with renewed energy. Laughter echoed through its halls as the father and daughter shared surreal and deeply grounding moments. For Lucas, every smile from Amelia and moment of joy she experienced reminded him why he had fought so hard to find her. But Lucas also knew that happiness alone wasn't enough. Amelia needed stability, opportunities, and a sense of purpose. He began meticulously planning for her future, seeking to provide her with everything she had been denied at the orphanage. One morning, Lucas broached the topic over a breakfast of pancakes and fresh fruit. Amelia, he began, watching her cut her pancake into neat squares, I've been thinking about ensuring you have the best opportunities moving forward. She looked up, tilting her head curiously. What do you mean, Dad? Well, he said, leaning forward, I want to ensure you're learning and growing in ways that make you happy. I've been considering hiring a tutor to help you with your studies. Someone who can come here and teach you at your own pace. Amelia's eyes widened. A tutor? Just for me? Lucas nodded, smiling at her excitement. Yes, just for you. And if you're particularly interested in anything, like art, music, or even sports, we can find teachers for that too. Her face lit up, though a hint of hesitation flickered in her eyes. That sounds amazing, she said softly. But is it too much? I mean, I don't want you to have to. Lucas reached across the table, taking her hand gently. Amelia, nothing is too much when it comes to you. You deserve every opportunity in the world, and I want to give you that. This isn't about money, but ensuring you have everything you need to be happy and successful. She bit her lip, nodding slowly. Okay, she said, her voice trembling slightly with emotion. I'd like that. In the following days, Lucas arranged for Amelia to meet with tutors and explore different interests. He even invited her to accompany him to his office, introducing her to the team that managed his business empire. Amelia was initially shy, clutching Lucas's hand tightly as they walked through the sleek, modern office building. Do you own all of this? She asked, her voice filled with awe. Lucas chuckled. I do, but it's just a building, sweetheart. What matters is the people inside. The ones who help bring ideas to life. And one day, if you're interested, I'd love to show you how it all works." Amelia's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "I think I'd like that," she said with a small smile. Lucas saw this as an opportunity to instill confidence in her, showing her that she had a place in his world, not just as his daughter, but as someone with immense potential. Despite their growing closeness, Lucas remained mindful of the emotional scars Amelia carried. Her years in the orphanage had left her with a tendency to doubt her worth, and there were moments when those insecurities resurfaced. Lucas, however, approached these moments with patience and unwavering love. One evening, as they read a book together in the living room, Amelia suddenly closed it and looked at Lucas somberly. "Dad," she began hesitantly, "do you ever feel guilty?" Lucas's heart tightened. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" She glanced down at her hands, fiddling with the corner of a blanket. "About finding me. I mean, I'm happy we're together, but I think about all the other kids at the orphanage. They don't have someone like you, and it makes me feel bad." Lucas reached out, gently tilting her chin so she would meet his gaze. "Amelia, feeling that way shows how big your heart is. Caring about others is natural, and wishing they could have what you do is okay. But you must also remember that you deserve love, happiness, and a family." She nodded, though her eyes were still clouded with uncertainty. "Do you think we could help them? The other kids?" Lucas smiled, a warm pride filling his chest. "Absolutely. I've been considering setting up a foundation in your mom's name. It could help provide resources, education, and opportunities for needy kids." Amelia's face lit up. "Really? That would be amazing." Lucas laughed softly, pulling her into a hug. "Then it's settled. Together, we'll make it happen. And it'll be our way of giving back." Over the next few weeks, Lucas and Amelia worked to design the foundation, brainstorming ideas and meeting with experts. The experience deepened their bond and gave Amelia a sense of purpose. She loved helping other children, and Lucas loved watching her confidence grow as she actively shaped the foundation's mission. One afternoon, as they sat in the garden discussing plans, Amelia turned to Lucas with a smile. "Mom would be proud, wouldn't she?" she asked. Lucas nodded, his voice thick with emotion. "She would be so proud of both of us." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the koi pond glimmering in the sunlight. For Lucas, it was a moment of profound peace, a reminder that life brought people back together despite all the loss and heartache. The day Amelia officially became Lucas's legal daughter was a moment neither of them would ever forget. Standing in the courtroom, surrounded by Clara and a few close friends, Lucas felt a weight lift from his shoulders as the judge declared the adoption finalized. "Congratulations, Mr. West," the judge said with a kind smile. "Amelia is now officially your daughter." Tears welled in Lucas's eyes as he turned to Amelia, who looked up at him with a beaming smile. Without hesitation, she threw her arms around him, and he held her tightly, whispering, "You'll never be alone again, Emma. Never." At the mansion, Lucas had planned a surprise to mark the occasion. The dining room was decorated with flowers and balloons, and a cake sat in the center of the table with the words, "Welcome home, Emma," written in delicate icing. Amelia gasped as she entered the room, her hands flying to her mouth. "Is this for me?" she asked, her voice trembling. Lucas smiled, kneeling to her level. "It's for us, sweetheart. Today is the start of a new chapter for both of us." They spent the evening celebrating, surrounded by laughter and warmth. Lucas noticed how Amelia's shyness seemed to fade with each passing moment, her confidence growing as she realized she was truly loved and cherished. Later that night, as Lucas tucked Amelia into bed, she looked up at him with wide, curious eyes. "Dad," she began, "do you think it's okay to call myself Emma now? It feels like a part of me, but I don't want to forget being Amelia either." Lucas stroked her hair gently, his heart swelling with love. "You can be both, sweetheart. Amelia is a brave, strong girl who overcame so much, and Emma is the daughter I've been searching for all these years. You don't have to choose. You're both, and I love every part of you." She smiled, her eyes shining with tears. "I like that. I'll be Emma Amelia West." "Perfect," Lucas said softly, kissing her forehead. "Good night, Emma Amelia West." As she drifted to sleep, Lucas sat by her bedside, watching her peaceful expression. He felt a deep sense of peace and gratitude for the first time in years. His family, once shattered by tragedy, was whole again. With the adoption finalized, Lucas focused on the foundation he and Amelia had envisioned. He named it the Sophia West Foundation in honor of his late wife, and its mission was clear: to provide support, education, and opportunities for children in need. Amelia actively shaped the foundation's programs, often visiting the orphanage to talk to the children about their dreams and how the foundation could help them. Clara became a close partner in the initiative, assisting Lucas and Amelia in connecting with more orphanages and underserved communities. One sunny afternoon, Lucas and Amelia returned to the orphanage to announce the foundation's first major project, a scholarship program to ensure every Evergreen orphanage child had access to quality education. As they stood before the children, Lucas touched Amelia's shoulder. "This foundation wouldn't exist without Emma," he said, his voice filled with pride. "She reminded me that no child should feel forgotten or unloved. And together, we will make sure that doesn't happen." The room erupted into applause, and Amelia's cheeks flushed with pride. She felt she had a place in the world for the first time, a purpose beyond her own story. In the following months, Lucas and Amelia worked tirelessly to expand the foundation's reach. They attended events, gave speeches, and visited countless orphanages, spreading their message of hope and resilience. Once a quiet and reserved girl, Amelia blossomed into a confident and compassionate young advocate, her voice inspiring others to believe in the power of love and second chances. One evening, as they sat by the koi pond, Amelia turned to Lucas with a thoughtful expression. "Do you think Mom would be proud of us?" she asked softly. Lucas smiled, his eyes reflecting the golden hues of the setting sun. "I think she's smiling down on us every day, Emma. You've turned her legacy into something beautiful that changes lives." Amelia leaned against him, her heart full. "I couldn't have done it without you, Dad." "And I couldn't have done it without you," Lucas replied, wrapping an arm around her. Lucas and Amelia sat silently as the stars twinkled in the night sky, their bond more potent than ever. Together, they had faced loss, rediscovered hope, and built a new life filled with love and purpose. For Lucas, the journey had taught him that the possibility of light remained even in the darkest moments. For Amelia, it was a reminder that even when life seems to take everything away, it can still give something extraordinary in return. Their story wasn't just about loss and reunion. It was about the transformative power of love and the unbreakable strength of family.